Welcome to another episode of the Prep Coach podcast. How are you all feeling after what was a pretty crazy weekend? There was a lot of flying, not a lot of sleep happening. MG, do you want to go through how it all was for you for that weekend?
Man, it was big, no doubt about that. We flew out Friday, Adelaide Show Saturday, landed Saturday night. I think Scotty and I got home at about 8:30 or something, and then we were all at the airport. We all met at the lounge. Picked him up at just before 5 a.m. on Sunday.
The next morning, yeah,
for a fly out for Perth. You went to Sydney, and then I think we got home 12:31 a.m. We walked in the door probably on Sunday night / Monday morning.
So Friday, airport to Adelaide, go to Adelaide, bump in 7 a.m. Adelaide show all day. From the show, pretty much gather our stuff and leave.
The show had maybe just finished for the minute. So
went straight to the airport, jumped on a plane, got home 8 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock that night. And then the next day, we're back at the airport by 6 a.m.
Yeah. So we did
a Perth flight that you did, and you were pretty much out for until midnight.
1 a.m. Yeah.
You got back
And you were in Sydney.
And I was in Sydney. I came back about 6:30 that night, which is crazy.
And then a 5 a.m. wake up on the Monday morning.
And then check-ins for the...
Oh, man, I didn't do my first check-in Monday till like 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Because I've got Talia on Monday morning, but yeah, I was just like a zombie.
Yeah.
But it was awesome.
Yeah, man, the weekend was amazing.
Adelaide put it on, man. Whoever said Adelaide's sleepy, Adelaide was great. Some awesome competitors. Maybe one of the best vibe crowds so far this season. If you were listening or watching on the live stream, it might have sounded like there were 1,000 people in there, right? It was a smaller venue, but it was full. But they were loud. They were into it. There were some beautiful moments on stage. The vibe backstage was like top level. How good was it? But the camaraderie between competitors, equally the same thing between coaches.
Yes.
And, we're getting great feedback all day on the running of the show, which was amazing. And I left there just on top of the world, to be honest. I thought it was a fantastic experience. Adelaide is coming to the party as far as NBA goes, and I can't wait to get back there already.
Yeah, we're going to need a bigger venue because that crowd was packed. So
yeah,
I know we're booked in for season C at that venue, but we're going to have to look at something different potentially next year because we're going to outgrow it.
Yeah, I suppose I just want to say a massive thank you to all of our Adelaide listeners, because we got a lot of people that came up to us and gave us some feedback on the podcast and how it's helped them. Big thanks to everyone from Adelaide, and a big thanks to everyone from Adelaide who supported NBA as well, and also took the time this week to send us. We got a lot of messages this week, which were amazing.
Lovely.
We're really, really grateful for it. Hopefully, what we displayed on the weekend in Adelaide gives you guys a little bit of a taste as to, what we're all about and how far we're willing to go for athletes. And I hope the word continues to spread, because we want to continue to do that, but just get better and better and better. So,
yeah, it was amazing. How did you feel about having a big, crazy weekend? Obviously, you didn't get to see much of the family and the kids, right?
No, I didn't. It was a busy, full-on weekend. I think at this point I'm kind of acclimated to that. Kind of reminds me a little bit of being in the UK, leaving very, very early, getting home very, very late at night, being on team buses, always traveling. So, I don't love being away that much, but I think it more hits you for me on the Monday, where you just go, and then literally when I sat down after that first block of check-in, I think I came out after about an hour and a half, and Normie said to me, he goes, "You all right?" My eyes were a bit bloodshot. And then I filmed that reel for you, and I looked at it afterwards, and I was like, well, it's probably not my most aesthetic look, and maybe I didn't sound overly enthused. I actually redid it 2 times.
Oh, did you really?
That. Like, I'd done it twice before that. I'm like, nah, it looks like I just don't care enough, but I was just so tired.
Yeah. No, the reel you did was good. So Scotty did a reel about Bali and the Bali package and the athlete village and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, look, the way you executed was awesome, but I looked at it too. I was like, he looks a little bit stoned. Like his eyes.
Yeah, my eyes. But I was trying to open them more. And when I got home that night, because I got home, I think I walked in the door at like 6:30. Jen's like, you need to eat and then have a shower and go to sleep.
Tell the listeners about our flight home.
Yeah. Oh, well, do you know, on the way we're coming back to the airport, and we're fortunate enough to have Shirley and her husband, Big Nick, legend, driving us back. And the whole way there, he was like, I hate flying. I get stressed about turbulence. Every time we drop, feel like we're going to crash.
No. Oh, no.
And then that was fine. We sat out the front. Everything was good. And then the captain said, "Oh, for the first hour, it'll be a little bit shaky," and then the service was meant to go, and then we kept hearing that noise, like the seatbelt sign on, and then the air hostesses were like, "Everyone, just make sure you stay in your seat with that." And we kept going, douche, douche, to the point where I was saying to
for 90 minutes, man.
yeah, to the point where I was literally sat there and I was like, man, I don't think I'm going to be able to eat anything. I feel like I'm going to be sick. I've never had that happen before. It was like turbulent, and then bang, you would drop, and it was like one of those ones where you kind of cling onto the seat a little bit.
Shit.
So it was like that non-stop. It was probably about the 2-hour mark. It started to ease up.
Jesus.
So we were trying to have a conversation. We would just stop and then just be like, this is not ideal.
This is not
we're thinking we're just going to sit back. Maybe we'll do a bit of work, watch a bit, whatever on the phone. And so...
yeah, we ordered a Coke Zero. Well, actually, before the Coke Zero, the guy opposite us, because we were sitting in very well, the guy opposite us ordered a glass of wine or something. So she's poured the wine, and that's when it started. And for about an hour, he's had to have his hand over his tongue. We were bouncing, and she had to take it away.
I'm going to chip my tooth.
Yeah, oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it was probably some of the worst turbulence I reckon I've had for a bit. But it wasn't like 10 minutes. It was just constant. So you just felt like you're in a rally car.
I was ready to go down at that point.
Do you guys run into the same air hostesses or
have a couple of times?
Yeah, because so when I did my flight back from Sydney on Sunday after the workshop, I ran into the Italian guy that we had on the way to Bali for the Bali show.
Yeah, I love the Flying Virgin.
Yeah,
me and Scotty, we talk to everybody, and I don't know, man. You guys know I'm big on this. I always find for me, if I can build a relationship with somebody, I always walk out having had a much better experience. And that's just related to like flying. But with flying specifically,
yeah.
And they always go out of their way to make sure that you're well looked after. So we do that everywhere we go. Same as you.
Yeah, so there was 2 staff on that flight that I had seen multiple times before, and they come and spoke to me. Yeah, I remember.
Well, one of her...
because we got the NBA T-shirt on, and they remember the logo and stuff.
Well, one of the ladies said to us, "Oh, one of the girls who works here is into all that bodybuilding." I'm like, "Oh, what's her name?" And I had a look, and she followed me on Instagram.
Oh, no way.
So...
That's so good.
Yeah.
You guys obviously saw me on that Saturday at Adelaide Show.
Yeah.
I wasn't the best.
Nah,
yeah.
So
I was about to get the black bag up to zip you up in it.
Yeah.
You were right from the bump in, and then it was almost just like you just went quiet to the point where a couple of people were like, "Oh, is MT alright?" I said, "Yeah, you just got a bad migraine," but you copped it hard because even on the way back, he was just chatting shit and waffling on the way back, like he usually does, just riding the high of the show.
Scotty had to actually just come down.
Yeah. Like, hey, what do you reckon, MT? He's like, and I was like, bro, he's asleep. So I literally just said, don't wake him, man. He needs to sleep.
I had to apologise, and I spoke to some other people that I had seen in Adelaide, and I said, sorry if I was off, but I had a splitting headache all day.
Oh, yeah, I saw you backstage.
Yeah, you were not bad.
I don't complain. I just go quiet, like smile on my face still, but I'm pretty quiet. But then, that car trip from the venue to the airport, which is 15, 20 minutes, I passed out. I was slumped over.
I was singing to you the whole time.
It wasn't. I was like, bro, stop singing.
And then at the airport in the lounge, I was just like, I just need a drink. My head was down. I slept on the plane the whole time, and I had to go to Donna's 50th and do a speech. So Donna, the posing coach. So I got home, had a shower, started to feel a little bit better, got changed, got to Donna's by about 9 p.m. and I was feeling pretty good. I was back. I was like, okay, this is good because I've got to do a speech. There's music in here. It's loud. It was good because I saw Scotty Fitz, our DJ. He was there as well, and some other people. Saw Tony Lanciano from IC and Vic. Saw Alex from Next Gen. There was also some other people there. The guy Brownie that does the I4B photography, he was there. So ran into a lot of industry people. That was really good. And then I had to do a speech, which I heard was okay. So that was good. I survived that one.
Been exceptional.
And then obviously I had Kiki with me, and she was just having the best time ever. And I was like, the last thing I want to do is say we need to go home because I'm tired, because I've been away all weekend working, and now you have to miss out because I'm tired. So we stayed to the end, and I had to get up the next day at 5 a.m.
Yeah,
so it was brutal. But anyways, the next day was fine. I went to the workshop with Candace and Dan, both posing coaches and pro athletes in NBA as well, and that was great. Yeah, that workshop was great. And you guys had the workshop in WA. How did it all go?
Man, is it Amy from World's Gym there?
Yeah.
She's
She's a weapon.
a phenomenal human being.
Yeah.
I've never walked into a workshop where somebody has like gathered everybody's details for you, making sure you're set, you need a drink, do you guys need anything? People coordinating people in certain positions to make sure
like,
they're
let's do the
listening.
group photo straight away. Everyone up against you met her. She's
great.
she's
awesome.
Actually, that's the first time because we did the WA workshop last time.
So I did the first one with Scotty, and then I think you went back and did the others.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I said when I was talking to the group at the start, I was like, it's a pretty special moment for us because it was a 40+ workshop.
That's crazy.
Before walking in, we caught Rich just by chance at the front training.
Oh yeah, okay.
He was in the door with Chassis. They just finished training. I was like, "Oh, you're here early?" He's like, "No, bro, I just finished training." He had to go and see his mum
because they live close. Yeah,
he lives right near.
So it was just pretty special. Like I know how much work, especially like Scotty. I know how much work Scotty's put into Western Australia, and it's been a bit of a grind. It was kind of that moment of like all the effort that has been put in for me was visible in one room. It was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. And then asking around who was doing the show, because often it might be people in further seasons. Pretty much most of the room was doing the show on the weekend. And you guys know the numbers and how much of an improvement it is from the last show, only being the second show in WA. And it's not just the numbers, but Scotty will attest this, the quality as well. Look at bikini, for example. The bikini lineups match that of Queensland. Like there's multiple classes, and so it was just a really kind of nice reward for effort moment. And because we're all so close, I don't know how much effort Scotty's put in. It was just like that feeling of like, what up, bro? Like I think I looked at it, I was like,
yes, man. Scotty had most of the relationships over there, to be honest. So,
but I think it's just good that our product has grown, and it's cool to see that in such a short span of time you've gone over to the West, and it also shows that I think that they've been hanging for that. Like we've known, obviously YNF's a great fed there over there, but they've been hanging for another fed to be consistent. It's tough on some of those other states that aren't, East Coast, that maybe don't get the same, love that we get down here, and some feds come and then maybe go versus them just knowing that we're here, we're not going anywhere. And also just, I think that one of the things that the feedback we kept getting was just your presence on social media, the content you put out, your live stream, everything that you're doing, the standard, like NBA, we knew about it a few years ago, but it's like, it's really, really arrived over there now. And I think, it's a credit to what all four of us have been doing to grow it and to level it up. So I can't wait for the weekend. It's going to be cool. Yes. And the standard is unreal. We actually just had our meeting about division times, and I was like, man, you're going to need to allow some time for the bikini classes because
we've allowed a lot of time for
looking, and I'm like, Jesus, have fun trying to find your first, second, third.
I think there were, Scotty and I normally split the workshop into half and half based on what turns and walks they're doing, and I think he had 20, and I think I had 17 just bikini girls.
That's crazy
at the workshop.
Yeah.
So
I really hope that these WA athletes do come over for the nationals and fly over. That we just need that presence there, because
but they are quality.
They're amazing.
Quality athletes. Yeah. And anyway, anyone watching the live stream this weekend will see that for themselves.
They'll see it. Yeah. So that's this weekend. That's this Saturday. Yeah,
that's this Saturday. Yeah. So we fly out Friday, and then
we're back Saturday night because Sunday is Mother's Day. So we need to make sure we do the right thing by the fam. Yeah,
we do.
Yep.
All right, you want to get into some questions? We've got a fair few.
Maybe one of the biggest weeks of questions.
Yeah, so we'll do the best we possibly can. There was one about, do we get enough sleep? We kind of just spoke about that. There was one about the WA workshop. We kind of spoke about that. There was one about this one. Okay, so what are your thoughts about when a director, so an NBA director, has a client competing on stage? Should Stu, the head judge, sit out on that one? So I'm assuming they're talking about maybe Adelaide because it just happened and your client Poppy did really well, which she's done well at every other federation, every other show. But anyways, these questions come up, so let's address it.
Yeah, I do find these funny and interesting, but I suppose, if I think about why the person is asking the question, a few things. First of all, there's so many occasions when Stu would actually have no idea which ones are our clients. We don't sit there every week and be like, hey, Stu, I've got this person, this person, and this person doing that show. Because, to be honest, it doesn't matter. It makes zero difference. Yeah. Second to that, if you have a look at the way our judging system works, which in my opinion is the most transparent system that exists, it is all electronically tabulated by each judge. The scores are available and everyone can get access to them. On top of that, the head judge does not have the overriding card. He can be outvoted and is very, very often outvoted.
Yeah.
And you can ask Stu about this. I suppose the biggest part for me is like, have a listen to what we've just spoken about time away from family, how much effort we're putting in, the lack of sleep, all this stuff that we're doing. If anyone genuinely thinks that the three of us would do all of that just to get a couple more overalls and sacrifice not just our integrity, but also Stu's integrity too, just to win a couple more overalls, which we had more than enough overalls before even joining NBA as directors. Just hearing me say that out loud, you should be thinking already like, yeah, you're right. Why the fuck would they do that? Why would we, go down that path of just trying to influence an outcome purely for a victory when, as MT said, you look at just the most recent examples, all of my clients that have done really well have either done really well elsewhere, in fact, have done better elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
If you statistically, we've won more overalls at other feds than we have at our own. So one could even argue that it goes the other way.
Yeah,
but it's just a fair system and it's transparent. And, that should really put that to bed pretty quickly. But I don't think Stu stepping off and having another head judge step in would be smart. The point of a head judge is to be the head judge, is to lead.
Yeah.
And why would you want them off
the
table?
Yeah.
But to take him off would also be to question his integrity, which is just
silly.
And to be honest, disrespectful, because I could say hand on heart, knowing Stu, but even before we got involved with NBA, one of the reasons that I would always put my athletes in that show is because I knew that he was really direct with what was rewarded, what was not. He's very open to communicate with coaches.
It's also all online for everyone to hear too, like what our criteria.
And putting my bias aside as, working with him from a judging standpoint, like he's one of the best in the space. He's not swayed by anyone.
Yep.
And if he's outvoted, then he doesn't say, no, we're going with what I want.
Exactly.
So he stands true to that. And all of those things, like since day dot, we haven't ever had one disagreement or even a conversation about judging other than you got your judges organized for the weekend. Yep, sweet. That's literally the only dialogue that we have, regarding that subject. And that was one of the things that he was really, really clear on when we came in, and we were the same, that we don't want anything to do with that. We don't have any interest in that. And as you said, I think it's silly to think to even remotely question that.
Yeah.
I can see why perhaps people may do that.
It's an honest question. Whatever.
Yeah.
It's an honest question.
Also, if you pay attention, if you're at a show, if you're watching a live show, one thing you'll never, ever, ever see with us, honestly, is you'll never see any of us three at the table sitting there for longer than 5 seconds unless we need to coordinate an athlete or a change of number or a change of category or something like that. You will never see any of the three of us sitting at that. I went and watched the Adelaide show from the crowd when I finished announcing 10 rows back while you know what I mean? I have no need to be at that table. And I've never seen either of you at that table sitting there and, talking to judges or pointing and influencing decisions. We also have there are no coaches on the table making decisions with their athletes. They're always stepped off if there is.
Yeah, so no coaches are sitting on the table if they have an athlete on, we have some amazing coaches that are also amazing judges. Joey is one of them.
For sure. But
he's far removed from the table, right? If he has an athlete.
He's not just sitting on the next seat.
He doesn't even judge that whole division.
He doesn't judge the whole division.
The whole division, he's off. So he's got a fitness girl, the whole fitness division he doesn't even touch, right? And also, other things too that have been picked up in the industry is we don't have any posing coaches on the table at all. We've got, there's some states where the prominent posing coach is still on the table. So Stewie is very, very particular about the judges that he has. And also, you're right too, is we never even approach the table. I think I approached the table in Adelaide to get a bottle of water under the desk for you.
There you go. Yeah, I went up literally to ask if, we could swap this athlete from novice to first season.
And someone had a wrong number too, I think.
But we'll be gone in 5 seconds.
And it's between judging.
Yeah.
They've finished the category, it's done.
Yeah.
We go over and do that. So
that should clearly put. I think anyone who's been around long enough and knows the three of us and knows Stu well enough will know that. Yeah, that would be the dumbest thing.
Yeah. Also, too, is if we really want to get as many overalls as possible, we wouldn't be running this podcast and telling everyone our secrets, right? On how to do things. Right?
Yeah. That's another good point. Yeah.
Talking about coaches, your pioneers story, which was amazing, by the way, really hit home about the changes that you're making in the industry. Other than federations, who do you think are some elite coaches in the industry? So I put that story, the quote about.
Yeah, I read that. I like it. Did say at the bottom unknown. I think should just put M. But that was awesome. It hit home really, really hard. It actually motivated me quite a bit. Do you want to maybe read it out just because there might be some people who didn't hear it? So maybe read it out first, and then so the question is like, who else is
in the industry is a lead or leveling up or changing things? But they're talking about coaches. So the quote was, "The standards set by new pioneers evolve an industry to reveal its true potential. They force growth and change in those who became complacent, unchallenged, and unmotivated to evolve. New pioneers don't seek recognition or praise. They aren't ego-driven. Their drive comes from seeing the entire industry thrive." Yeah.
Might get that tattooed on my chest.
True. So on that, their question is, like what coaches in the industry are doing what that says there? Is there any coaches that are pioneers in the industry that maybe are doing things for the better?
Yeah. I mean, I think the standout for me, just because of how recent it was, I think Rich is definitely someone that sort of comes to mind when you think about not just the quality of his athletes. We always talk about success leaving clues. Well, have a look at 99% of his athletes. They all tend to come in looking the same way, which is something we're big on. And, all of your athletes should kind of look at that same level. But I think, for him, it's also what he's putting out, giving out, similar to this, a ton of great knowledge for no other reason other than trying to help better other people, which pretty much hits that quote on the head.
100%. Yeah.
So the other thing that I look for when I think about like people leading the way or pioneers is like someone who you see with their athletes that like gives everything, is at every show, there at the start, there till the end. Like those sort of people for me are people that I look at and go, the industry is lucky for having you. Like, like a Keegan from Indomitable or like
that team is
every show, start to finish, like, those sort of people also, impress me.
Yep.
Because they really do care. So like they're the two things that I look at. Like,
name that comes to mind is Benny Wortley for me. He's
great
also a great human and also a great athlete, but also a great coach as well. And I think he really wants to do everything just to improve the sport with no ego at all. Just wants to be the best he can be, to make the sport the best it can be. I name some other names, but I'll leave some for you. So
I would have said both of those. I think to circle back on Rich, I think one of the things that he's identified his niche, that he's really leaning into the art of coaching rather than just the X's and the O's, and almost stripping it back to understanding your athlete. It's one thing you could have the most crazy background pertaining to academia and you may know the physiology and the science inside out, but if you are not able to lock in and communicate with your athlete and to get the best out of them, then really it's all void. And so that's something that I think a lot of people, everyone knows Rich for his black tiles.
Yep.
And that's, but he, I think, has really forced a lot of people. Every now and then I'll see something that he puts out and it's like, yeah, I absolutely can see where you're going with that, and forces you to reflect and to think about those things. So him, I was literally thinking about Benny. I think guys like Joey. Yep. I think Joey's is one of the most consistent, reliable, and just all-rounded, great people within natural bodybuilding. What he's done up in Queensland, I think, is phenomenal. And another one, a big one for me that stems to mind is DC.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I look at him and I see, like, I feel like I can relate a lot to how he goes about it, how he carries himself, the way he speaks, the way he, even at the Nationals last year, not to sound weird, but I was watching him from sort of afar to see how his dialogue is with his athletes, how he communicates, and just seeing the process in terms of how he goes about doing things. I think, looking at the care, whether he was there, he was first in, coffees for people. He was like one of the last ones out, and that's what it is, knowing that you're not just there to send your loom at the end of the week. That's your check-in done. Mm-hmm. He's very much in the trenches with his athletes, and that was something that I saw a lot of. And I think you could go through lots and lots of people. But
I think another one coming to my mind is like Graden.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like absolutely.
True ambassador of the sport. Absolutely lives and breathes that lifestyle. Mm-hmm. Is a purist. And he's a great guy. He motivates so many people. He inspires so many people. You see his team, his athletes. Like, he did a show recently. I don't know how many bloody people rocked up, but just that's the love that everyone has for him.
For sure.
Yeah. So he is not. Anyways, we could go on forever. There's a lot in the industry, but we digress. I'm just wondering why NBA doesn't share placing photos on their socials, only overalls. So we actually do post all the placings on our stories, and then we put that as a highlight, a story highlight. So they're always there. You got to remember, like, there could be over 60 divisions in a day.
Sometimes
So
70 or 80.
or 80, or, yeah, especially when you've got pros. Yeah, so imagine posting 70 or 80 posts a day. So we do it on our stories, and they're there for the highlights, and people can see them. Remember, too, is we post our results on our website, too. So fully transparent, the placings and the scoring that was done. So whenever we do get test results back, we and all the placings are confirmed and nothing needs to change, then we obviously post it up there. Okay, how much guidance versus freedom should a coach give someone during their reverse? Guidance and freedom during the reverse. What do you think, Scotty?
I think, like all things, depends on the individual, depends on their category, where they're at. I think the reverse period or the recovery period isn't something that should be left to you finish your show on a Saturday and now let's talk about it Saturday night. These are things that you should be conversations that you should be having around some of the negative things that can come with coming out, some of the, not just the issues, pertaining to focus on food and overfeeding and things of that nature, but the withdrawal from no longer having the goalpost there that I'm working towards this and associating happiness with getting on stage and doing those things and starting to transition away from that and focusing on the scales and your look and more around feeling good and having greater cognitive function and spending time with friends and family. And so I think all of those conversations, as we've discussed numerous times on the previous episodes, we need to have those conversations early and start to talk about them. What's the plan going to be? What does it look like socially for you for the next few weeks? And really starting to give them some of the tools so that if they are faced with, Scotty did say to me that there might be a time to go out for a meal. I come home and I've just had an off-plan meal and now I feel like having this and then having that. These are normal things to experience. If I do slip up and I just eat, a little bit silly for one evening and I have too much, I'm not going to punish myself the next day and go and do cardio. I'm just going to get back to what I was doing. We use the analogy that if you scrape your car, you don't just drive your Ferrari into a brick wall and write it off. You're more mindful about where you park and how you park it and the execution next time. So I think just opening up those channels of communication nice and early so that they're starting to think about it and it is something to give consideration to, but also for them to be able to communicate with their friends and family. Because one of the most common things is, you're done now, so now you can go back to eat normal again.
Be normal, yeah.
Yeah, and it's okay if you used to eat a certain way, you've done prep, and you're like, I've been bitten by the bug. I love this. I love how I feel. And so maybe I don't want to go out and eat, at a restaurant. I'll do that every single week. Maybe I want to stick to what makes me feel good. But it's being able to communicate why. You've been eating a certain way for 7 or 8 months. If I just decide to now go back out for Friday night pizzas and beers, I'm going to probably feel a little bit sick. But maybe if I want to have pizza, maybe everyone can come to my place and we'll do homemade pizzas and bridge that transition. So I think it's just, like I said, communicating and then just giving people the ability to do that. And if they're following a meal plan, like a lot of my athletes will follow a meal plan, I'll usually give them, so again, they'll know what their intakes are going to be well and truly before it finishes. And then maybe we'll map out what are some of the foods you reckon you might like to have for your dinner. We can work it out. And if they're like, I'm really confident I can take control, I'm never going to be like, nah, I want you to do this.
Okay.
No dramas. And if you run into a little bit of turbulence, we can have a chat about it. But also, it's important as a coach to check in with your athlete the next day. Hey, how are you feeling after yesterday? How was your night? You're basically collecting information and data without saying, what did you eat? How much did you have? And then a few days after again, how are things trending? And then they have their check-in. And then gradually you're just giving them a little bit more. And as they start to feel better and they regain some of that fat mass, they start to feel better. But I think it's important to also normalize that because a lot of athletes, I've gained 3 kilos, I'm in a bad state. It's normal. It's not normal to walk around shredded, food focus, low sex drive, just feeling shitty, but you look great in the mirror.
So the component of the question, which I know you kind of touched on a little bit, but it's guidance versus freedom. It sounds like it's all guidance. There's all a plan. There's all a structure. You don't just say, training, do what the fuck you want. Nutrition, intuitive. No, there's actually, so is there freedom where you say, I don't care about this component, you can do whatever you want? or is it all guidance and structure and there is a plan, there is a method?
Well, if we're talking about training, again, assessing how banged up is the athlete. Some athletes I just can't wait to get back in the gym and train. Whereas if I'm honest, after a prep, I usually need to have 3 or 4 days of just having a break, going for a walk, still doing all of the normal things, but I don't want to go in and thrash my body. If you've got someone that's really beat up, maybe they need to have a week off. But if they're like, no, I really want to train, it might be like, all right, we'll run a 3 or a 4 day split for the next 4 weeks just to, give back to the system a little bit more, take it a bit easier on connective tissue. And then after 4 weeks, you've got a bit more fat mass on you. We can start to ramp up. But again, that should all be planned well and truly in advance.
That's what I'm saying. That's guidance.
Yeah.
That's not freedom.
Yeah, and it's also not dictation either, because you're also you might have an athlete that's like, I'm done now, I don't need any help. And it's pretty rare that happens now, because 99% of the time athletes are with you in season, off season.
Yeah.
I know that's how it is for us. So they know what they're doing in the next block, and they know why they're doing that, because it's been communicated earlier. Because someone's like, I'm going away on holidays, I want to just eat intuitively while I'm in Bali. What are your thoughts? I'm like, well, if you want, that's okay. If you want to do that, there's some good places. You might give them some suggestions where maybe you set some goals, like you want to have a high fiber, high protein breakfast, whatever. Typically, you only eat 3 meals in Bali. If you're having alcohol, make sure you're hydrated first, but be mindful that it's probably not ideal to go from 0 to 100. So, but you're also, we're dealing with adults, so you have to give them enough slack to be able to make decisions. And sometimes they can make bad ones, but also there's nothing wrong with making a mistake if you learn from it. And so it sets you up better for the next time and the next time. So I think it's more having that blend, but guidance should definitely supersede freedom. If you're just telling them, go nuts, do what you want, for me, it's a little bit like, I don't really give a shit. Your comp's over now, I'm not worried about that. But our goal should be, as a practitioner, as a coach, got to put them back on the other side of the fence. And there's such a responsibility, especially for females. Typically, in my experience, run into a little bit more turbulence post-com. Guys are usually a lot more okay with, happy to eat and do whatever I need to do. But for females, it's important that they have that support and that they're not just left to their own devices. Because when you pull someone down, you're talking about working with fitness, even sports and female athletes, you're running them to very low levels of body composition. And the toll that takes on a female physiologically is pretty extreme. And so if you're not across, all of those things that we've just discussed, and again, getting them to get some blood work, seeing where they're at, checking with them and being supportive with them, then there's every chance that they're going to run off the rails. And you need to make sure that you're putting a plan in place, and it will never go perfectly. There will always be turbulence.
Yeah.
But you need to make sure that, again, there's solutions, and also all of these things and these situations that potentially do arise, it's been communicated early on, so they're not feeling shame or like, I've let you down, I've let myself down. At the end of the day, it's not normal to be inside out.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that everyone leaves that state is different from person to person.
Yeah. So MG is obviously having a coach post-comp. Is it as important as comp? Do you actually speak to athletes more in the reverse than you do in during comp prep? And is there anything that you don't direct them on? You just say, nah, do whatever you want. They don't really care.
No, not right. I've just still got PTSD every time Scotty says the word turbulence. Every time if you watch this back, you might see me jolt every time I see rips out the word turbulence. But no, the only thing that I might do, man, is like what Scotty said, is like the food will always be ready to go, or the updated macros will be there, and I'll always have the training program ready to go as well. But I might just give that 2 or 3 days of like freestyle in the gym for a couple of days, where you don't have to just track and record your workout in the app, just to give that little bit of a mental break. Most people are happy to do it straight away, but that's probably the one thing where I'm like, if there's going to be some freedom, have a couple of days just not to open kahunas and
put the data in.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, history will show, and we've all been around long enough to know that full freedom is just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And like, it's not about even communicating more. I communicate the same amount.
Yeah.
Check-ins are the same length. The amount of messages on IG are the same, sometimes a little bit more. There's no difference between prep and reverse. Like, coaching's coaching. It's not like coaching is only important in prep. It's important all the time, whether it's off-season, whether it's prep. So the communication doesn't change.
I'd probably say...
You know what people think athletes think it changes? It's because they're posting less. they're doing less stories, so you're resharing less stories,
Sure.
and they maybe feel like they're not getting as much love.
Yeah.
But it's just because they're also not putting as much out on socials, so there's not that extra communication on IG to reshare 5 things they did this week, whereas in reverse, they're only maybe doing 1 story. So that's probably why people might feel like they're getting less. But if you look at what you're getting from your coach, the communication, the plan, everything, all of that should be exactly the same.
The only thing I'd probably do a little bit differently is I think the day and even the first week after the comp, I'm probably asking them every day how they are and then tailor that off a little bit.
Yeah, back it off after that.
Because that first week is what's going to set you up for failure or success. So, because you know how difficult it is, right? So normally every day in the first week, I'll be sending a message and being like, how's it all going? What do you need? What have you been experiencing?
Are you experiencing any turbulence?
Have you experienced any turbulence at all? But as Scotty said, like all that plan and approach and education is given to them weeks prior. So you probably do the same, but you're probably sending them maybe a bunch of emails of information, but also probably doing a loom and explaining the process and the plan and what your weight's going to do week on week and what we're expecting you to gain and what your macros are for the first week and your cardio and your steps and what's going to be for the second week. That's probably all known up front so they know exactly what they're walking into. And you probably have a plan and approach of this is what you do the first meal after the show. This is what you do the first day after the show, second day, third day, the week, and moving forward. So all of it's planned, prepped, ready to go. There might be differences in the way you coach them. There might be differences in the leeways that you might give them a little bit compared to prep, where everything needs to be 100% on point. Maybe you're saying, yeah, you can have 1 or 2 untracked or whatever that may be, but you're definitely guiding them and having a plan in place. I don't think there's any component that I'd just say, I don't care about that, do what you want.
I actually tell my athletes at the end of the season, they'll have a post-show meal that I'll have them bring, and it's usually just loaded with protein and fiber as a means of also helping to just get them out of their own way in a sense that will usually delay the desire to eat, delays transit time, delays gastric emptying, they're feeling a bit fuller. So maybe they're going out for dinner, maybe it's an off-plan meal, maybe it's pizza, but if they've had nothing all day and no protein, they're ravenous.
Oh, yeah.
They could do 3 or 4. Versus if they've had, 300-400 grams of Christmas, some rice in there, lots of veggies and some protein, and then go nuts with the condiments, load up. It tastes like the best thing they've ever eaten. And their parents and friends are like, what the fuck you eat? Like, why are you so excited?
Best potatoes ever.
Best potato I've ever had.
Yeah.
But equally, as a result of that, they're really content they go out. They don't need to have a lot and they feel pretty good. And then as a result of them feeling pretty good, that usually then instills the desire to get back to sort of as they were rather than, there's some people that have that mentality of just write the Ferrari off because it does happen.
How many of our TMG athletes can't finish that post-show meal?
Yeah.
Happens all the time, right?
Yeah. That because you're also getting him to push in fluid to help, balance out.
Balance everything out. Yeah.
Plasma and things like that. So
actually, just quickly before we move on, going back to training, I know you said that maybe the first day or 2, they can freestyle it, they can do what they want, maybe don't record it in the app, those kind of things. I actually find that I don't give them a new program the first week they finish a comp because I know in that week, I just tell them, follow the structure of the program. But if you want to change a variation or something like that, or you don't want to track your weight or whatever, that's fine. But I want you to follow that structure. And then week 2 of your reverse, so 1 week post-comp, is a brand new program. Because you kind of need to motivate them and say, okay, do a SWOT analysis, what they need to improve on. Here's your new program. We've identified where the gaps are, what you need to do differently, and they're motivated. It's kind of hard to motivate them straight after a show to get into the gym and crush their off-season gains. So sometimes that first week will be like, follow the current program the way it sits, the structure. But if you want to change what kind of lat pull down you do, or you want to do something different or fancy in the gym, or you want to train with a bunch of friends for the first week, whatever that may be, that's fine. But the program is pretty structured, pretty close to after that show.
Yeah. The other advantage, because I don't actually change, if you're in microcycle 4 and you're in an 8 micro block, then you'll finish that block. But I find by not necessarily, you might pull out, you'll usually pull out volume so that it's, at most, they'll be doing 4 sessions for that week, but more often it's 3, sometimes 4 if they want. But then by finishing that off, week 2, energy availability is higher, muscle glycogen levels are way back up. It's like, wow, look at my numbers compared to week 4. And then week 6, it's up again. And then all of a sudden, now they're associating yes, they're a bit softer, a bit fluffier, they're eating more, but it's like, look at my training performance go like that. And that's a nice segue to transition away from focusing on how you look and what you see on the scale versus what I can now do on the gym. I can leg press this, I can hip thrust that. And that is an important piece, because if you can transition out of that with a desire to, I just can't wait to get stronger, to acquire more tissue, that is so much more better and productive as an athlete than, oh my God, I want to keep my abs. Like, at the end of the day, next time you get on stage, you trying to stay lean is mitigating how much size that you. In essence, it's preventing you from getting better.
Yeah.
The best thing that you can do, like I've said this before, if I could take a pill after the show and be back to like 96, 97 kilos, I feel good, I'm heavy now, I can train again, I would do that straight away in a week, because then I'm getting rid of a 12-week, 14-week period of having to slowly get all of that back. You feel amazing straight away, and then I can get back to getting better. And the next time you're on stage, the result will reflect that in terms of how you look.
Yep, you made a good point about changing your mindset from being an aesthetic-based athlete to now a performance-based athlete. Yeah, and getting back in the gym and crushing it. This one's with MG. Thoughts on cookie and other dessert companies being leading sponsors of various shows? Could having a competitor win a big dessert box set them up for failure? We've had this conversation, so you can go.
Yeah, it could. Simply, it really, really could. I think, we're very mindful. We've had discussions as a group, if I just talk about the four of us with Stu, about, who we want president in our shows and what they're providing through our athletes. And ultimately, is that going to be setting our athletes up for success? And, we've made decisions to, not take on monetary advantage for us because we didn't think it was in the best interest of athletes in the past. So, it definitely, and I think that's the part of having, coaches, being directors, is we've seen competitors go through it, and we've spoken about, this is, by the way, this is episode 140. And I reckon if you go back to episode 10 or 15, there's us talking about what you should give to your friends who have just finished competing to set them up for success. And I think back then, all those years ago, we were saying, buy them a meal prep voucher or buy them a gold class ticket. Don't buy them a burger or a cookie or whatever it is, because that's going to lead them to failure. And I think as a federation, yes, we do need to be mindful about who is present at our shows and what we are giving to our athletes. And as I said, from our point of view, just speaking on NBA's part, we have turned down sponsorships that would financially benefit us because we don't think it's in the best interest of athletes post-comp. So, that being said, if you go and put your business hat on for a second, if that show would be better run, or you could use that money from that sponsor to provide something for the athletes that would enhance the experience, it would be worth considering. But again, you'd have to look at what the trade-off is. And ultimately, if we thought it was going to, lead to a poor experience for our athletes, then we wouldn't do it. Simple as that.
Yep, definitely.
I suppose no amount of money is really worth risking somebody's mental health or long-term health. But again, we're all adults too, and if you can't control yourself post-show, that's not the federation's fault either. So, you got to look at it from both sides.
100%. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Accommodation recommendations for nationals with proper kitchen. Do you want to go through
over to the great man of turbulence?
For nationals, so the venue that we have at Bankstown.
Yeah, but does that have a kitchen in it?
Yeah, so it has the hotel. The hotel is attached to the venue.
Yeah,
and every room has a microwave and a sink. But then there are rooms there that are the apartment style rooms where it has a full kitchen.
Oh,
so at nationals, it's honestly an amazing venue for anyone traveling. There are obviously the hotel right there at the venue, which kitchen facilities in your room if you desire to have it. Coles is a 5-minute walk. We also have UFC gym, which is a bodybuilding gym right at the venue.
We trained there last time.
At 11 o'clock at night.
You can get a pass and train whenever you want.
Get a pass, train whenever you want, and it's discounted pass if you are a member of, or you have booking at the hotel.
Yep.
So...
And we've got a discount code.
And we've got a discount code for the accommodation. If you go on our website now and you have a look at the Nationals event, you click on there, it actually has the information on how to use the discount code. It's 15% off your accommodation.
It's a lot. Big.
15% is awesome.
It's big.
Yeah, it's really awesome. Good. Yeah. So, yes, we do have accommodation for Nationals. That is the recommendation, and it's awesome.
It's one of my favourite venue/accoms.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the only ones that we have shows that it's one and the same.
Yeah.
But it's also, anyone that hasn't been to Bankstown, it is kind of like a mini Vegas.
Mini
Like
Vegas,
it's a cool place. It's got everything in one, and the rooms are also awesome.
Yeah, and especially for friends and family being there, because there's so many restaurants, cafes inside that mini Vegas, inside the venue, they go watch you on stage, they come out, they sit down, have a coffee, maybe they bring you out with them, you sit,
Maybe grandma puts $5 in the poker.
Yeah, maybe she
does.
Maybe she wins the jackpot.
Maybe she wins
the jackpot.
Is there a certain amount of body weight or body fat that is ideal for clients gaining in their off season? I think we've kind of spoken about this.
Yeah.
The ideal gain in your off season.
Yeah.
I know we've spoken about, you get to 10% above your stage weight, then you get to 15, then you get to 18%. You kind of assess the physique as you go, and then we go from there. But do you want to talk about body fat percentages in your off season, like roughly what it's?
What about like even a bit like that, and then as a comparison to like general health body fat percentages, like if you were to do like a DEXA or a Tanita scan or something, the charts that say based on this age you should be at that, and then compare that to where you think maybe a bodybuilder should sit.
Oh yeah, because our BMI, we're all obese.
Yeah,
Like
that. Like for example, say a 35 to 40-year-old male. I think what would be the healthy gen pop range of body fat for a 35 to 45-year-old? Let's say 35 to 40-year-old male would be 18 to 24%. Maybe would be like the.
I don't really prescribe to people even. I think the body fat percentage is just there's no point even using that as a metric of assessment, because unless someone's going to go and get a proper DEXA scan, which they're not going to go and get that, they got access to a nice expensive DEXA machine, or you are fortunate enough to work in a physiology lab, then there's no point in getting them. And that's why when people are like, I see on stories, oh my God, I'm 3.8%. I did a Jackson Pollock skin fold test, and I'm just like, you're about ready to start prep. You're not 4%. And you don't really realize that until you go and get a scan. And I actually had a scan when I first got over to the UK, and I thought I was pretty inside out, but I was surprised, thinking like maybe I'm going to be like, I don't know, high fours or something like that. And I think my scan, I was like 6, something like that %, just under 6.
Yeah, well, you remember when I got scanned? Remember, I got scanned at the end of my prep?
Yeah.
And I was considerably lean.
You were very, very lean.
Yeah. And I think it said 7%. And I was like,
there you go. So
would not have picked 7. I would have picked lower.
Someone would have looked at you and said he's sub 4. But
there's nothing on him. There's nothing on him, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I think if you're truly inside out, if you're below 6%, like if you're in that, I don't know too many people that have had a scan under that sort of mark. And I think that's why majority of people aren't going to do that. You're going to go and use a bioimpedance or something like that. So I just don't really think that it's a relevant metric to assess composition, which is why, and even with skin folds, talking about that before, where unless you've got someone who is ISAC certified, who knows what they're doing, again, that you can work out using an equation and estimation of your body fat percentage. But for me, when I take skin folds of athletes, I'm looking at the change in your sum of 9 sites from the last time I measured you to where you are now.
You're looking at changes, not the actual number itself.
Yeah, but I mean, you could have someone, you can take a quad fold, but you don't have a hamstring fold or an adductor fold. So it's like there's areas of composition that you're not factoring in. And even then, with a DEXA is still not always gonna be right. Like, we use that to assess bone, but in terms of muscle, you got to factor in all of your organs and what you've eaten, fluid. So it's just So I think it's one of those things, you're better off really going off your eyes and aesthetics. But in terms of where people should land in the improvement season, you are leaner than what I am right now, and you're able to still train. For me to do what I want to do and to lift what I want to lift, if I'm at 98 to 102 in that range, I'm probably in the strongest range that I can be. Anything heavier than that, then I'm just getting fat for no reason.
Yeah.
It doesn't enhance my performance. But usually anything before that, there's usually a little bit of a dip what I can do here versus there. So if you're looking at chasing optimization versus adaptation, that's what you have to choose. So when we're in prep, we're trying to get leaner, we have to make do with that. But when we're trying to acquire new tissue, if it means that you have to be a little bit fluffier, and maybe you don't look as aesthetic as Michael Galantha when he's strolling down the beach with his sunglasses on a Saturday morning, but you can squat 6 plates and you can still deadlift 240 kilos. It's like, well, that is going to help me look better on stage the next time than than if I'm to walk around being leaner. But he can maybe do all those things with abdominals. He might squat 7 plates. You know what I mean? So it's.
And then I woke up from my dream. I mean, I'm just trying not to get on the walking frame at the moment.
So it just really depends on everyone. And I think as a coach, if you have someone, I've got some athletes that can walk around being a bit leaner and still perform, really, really well. And I've got others that just need to be a little bit heavier and need to carry up a little bit more body fat to be able to perform better, to recover better. And so the trade-off's fine. It might mean that the one that's a bit leaner, they may be able to complete a 22 or a 24-week prep. The one that's a bit fluffier, we might have to spend an extra 3 or 4 weeks in a pre-prep phase, and maybe you allow a little bit more time because they're walking around a bit heavier. So I don't really think that there should be a blanket statement on where you lie. I think you should assess, is performance good? Is recovery good? Physiologically, are you intact? And if all of those things are good, then it's really just dependent on where you are. I think gone are the days where there's a badge of honor. I can eat 5,000 calories to walk around. Anyone that eats that amount of food and I can vouch for it, it's not fun. I wish that I could bulk on 3,000 calories and just be like, that's what I need to see 100, 200 grams every week. Because in essence, you want to be able to get the most out of doing the very, very bare minimum.
Yeah.
And that's literally the reason why I'm lean at the moment is I just
can't get the food in.
It was too hard to get the food in, and I've just decided this is an easier option for me at the moment.
Yeah, makes sense. Come a little bit closer to me, Rob. Actually, on that,
lots of winks when you go walking around the street with your shirt off.
One of the other questions was, what's the biggest mistake you see in athletes that affect their development? I was just going to say, what you've kind of touched on is one of those things is you don't really know how good you can feel, how strong you can get until you really push the boundaries to get there. So people that are sitting pretty in maybe an X amount of food, X amount of body fat or body weight, they might feel way better and gain more muscle and get stronger if they just push the boundaries a little bit more. Like, we love to hear when our athletes are on a decent amount of food and they're like, I feel the strongest I've ever felt in the gym. Mm-hmm. Like, for me, that's goals for the improvement season. Very for sure. What's the most accurate food tracking tool? I only ever use MyFitnessPal, but I don't even trust that. Like, I always audit it, make sure double check everything, double check all the entries. Specifically the macros, the fiber, and even the electrolytes, like the sodium, potassium in them as well. But yeah, I don't. That's what I use. But I know you guys, you've been doing your meal plans on a different app.
Yeah, Nutritics.
Right?
Yeah. So I started using Nutritics when I went over to the UK, and obviously told MG about it. If you're writing a meal plan, it's the most robust, I think, that you can use, because you can pick up different countries. We use it if you've got players, like I've got someone who's, gone and they've gone home to either Wales or they're in a different country, or Canada, and it's like, I can't put Coles oats 30 grams. So you can actually look and it will come up. It might be AUNZ, or it could be CA for like Canada. So it'll have the code on what you want to use. But I think if you're talking about everyday people here in Oz, if you're using MFP, you got to be really careful what code you use. But the biggest thing is consistency in what you're using. So you store 100 grams of chicken breast as 20 grams of protein and 1 gram of fat, right? And I might store it as 22.3 grams and 1.3 grams of fat per 100 gram serve. As long as whenever I'm adding or subtracting from that, and you're doing the same thing with where you add it, as long as you're consistent in terms of where you add to it or take it away, then really it doesn't matter. Yeah. Because it's ultimately the amount of energy has either gone up or gone down based on what you deem 100 grams of that particular product to be standardized.
And that's also another reason why you want your food selection to be very, very consistent as well, because you get more consistent results and accurate data. So especially in prep, we understand off season or previous season, you have a little bit more flexibility, but that's why we talk about how, like, having a set menu, something that you always have every single day, so that things are super consistent, so you get more repeatable results as well.
I don't even, every now and then I'll use MFP to just see, because sometimes I forget what I'm actually eating, because I literally eat the same thing all the time. It might be a minor, I might have beef instead of chicken mince for dinner one night, but otherwise I don't use MyFitnessPal anymore. And I'm also, because I know I eat the same thing, the same portions, and if I see my weight is starting to, it's been 2 weeks and it hasn't really changed, then maybe, unless if performance is still good, I don't really care, I'll stay the same. But otherwise, I'll add an extra 10 grams to my rice flakes in meal one, and maybe I'll have an extra 10 grams of cereal. Or maybe I'll eat Harvey or Evie's leftovers. I don't know if it's exact, but you can use that as a guide. And that's why I think, and this is something that I've realized recently with Juki, he's Japanese, there's obviously a language barrier there. So one of the things in terms of making a reduction, trying to work out, he has this miso soup, trying to work out the ingredients and shopping at a Japanese greengrocer. So we've gone from having 3 portions of those today to a week to now he's just having the one. And so straight away you see a response from that. Now, I don't actually know exactly how much is in that, but I know that by taking away 2 of those serving sizes, there's less.
Yeah,
and there's also less sodium. So
yeah, of course. Yeah.
Sometimes I think we can get really carried away with elements of minutia, but at the end of the day, we're just creating, when we're talking about getting someone leaner, we're creating a deficit and we're looking at trying to add on a little bit more. We're just putting in a little bit more food. And as long as things are consistent, and that's the biggest thing, he eats the same thing every single day. So I think if you are a creature of habit, it really takes a lot of that out of it. You don't have to stress as much.
Yeah. Awesome. With Nutritics, what database does it use?
It's constantly updated. So it has multiple ones. I can't even remember how many different countries, but you can look at foods, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, like all over Europe. So, so it's not cheap. It's pretty expensive. It's designed it's designed so that you can have multiple athletes. Ideally, and your athletes can have their login. So it's more so used in professional sport, but you can use it for, if you're an everyday coach, I wouldn't worry about it. But if you're a full-time prep coach and you want to pump out really good quality meal plans and you want to get all of your vitamins and your electrolyte compositions, then it is the most robust.
Awesome.
You probably should have contacted Nutritics
for sponsorship.
Asked for a little thing before you gave that.
Yeah.
You might have got a little. Scotty is not sponsored by.
Yeah, it's a bit more expensive than your everyday MFP, so most people probably won't. But it is pretty good.
Do you want to read out a message?
Oh, I should have read it at the start.
We'll read it at the end because we're finishing up now. So read out a message.
This is from one of our friends who's a listener of the show, but you'll know who it is. It says, "I'm pretty bored today. Can you call me when you're doing the podcast and just put the phone on the ground so I can listen to it today and I don't have to wait till tomorrow?"
You have to put him on mute.
That is Mr. Clap. That is Mr. Clapper. But that just shows that it's crazy to think that people sit around. I got a beautiful message from one of our Adelaide competitors this week. I did forward it on to you guys. And she's an incredible athlete. Hope she's coming to nationals. But she basically said, yeah, she sits and waits every week for the next episode, like with the series of Netflix. And so it's pretty mind-blowing that
it's mind-blowing.
People watch it on the TV.
People do that. I'm sorry you have to look at my face for 40 minutes. I would much suggest you go straight to Spotify and save yourself the pain.
The video's on Spotify too.
So, is it really?
Yeah, the Spotify has the video and YouTube has the video as well. But, people can just listen to the audio if they want. But, yeah, Spotify has the video.
Yeah. Any of our Perth listeners, quick cheeky shout out. Make sure you get your ass down to Laka Panina in Scarborough. Scotty and I ate there on Sunday.
Yeah.
We literally walked in.
Far out, man. Like, it's basically right on the water. It's next to the Surf Lifesaving Club. It spans all the way around. You can just see ocean everywhere. But, like, as you know, for our beautiful celiac friend here, it's pretty rare that, he gets to go to a restaurant and he can find something. But, man, we walked into a freaking piece of Angus and broccolini and potatoes that Scotty and I ate with a spoon. Oh, and then after that...
We actually walked in and then it was like then he now come.
Oh my God.
And the guy's putting things like sparkling. So I'm like, oh, I'll have some sparkling. Next thing I know, there's this beautiful steak just sitting in front of me.
God.
Like,
and then
pulled it apart with a spoon.
He's like, oh my God, you've got a pizza of it.
And then 2 seconds.
She's like, oh, we just turned it off. And he's like, oh, well, we're coming on Friday. Can you do gluten-free pizza? She's like, yeah. He goes, oh, we'll have it on Friday. She goes, no, give me 1 second. She sprinted.
Started it back up?
No, yeah. It was within 5 minutes.
And then in about 6 minutes, all of a sudden, this beautiful prawn pizza.
Gluten-free prawn pizza.
Oh, my God.
And it was so, I can't remember last time I had pizza. And it was so light. It was...
So shout it out again.
It's Laka Panina in Scarborough in WA, Perth. Phenomenal.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah.
Can't wait to eat there on Friday night.
We're going to be there on Friday night.
Yeah, I've never seen that man with a bigger smile on his life. Like, how rare is it that the celiac is being catered to?
But also, and I asked her, where did you get this base from? It's unbelievable. So her old head chef left to start up gluten-free pizza pasta manufacturing company, and so he supplies it now. And I was like, well, he can supply me.
Do you know what he said? She's like, yeah, my old head chef started up a gluten-free pizza and pasta, and all he heard was pasta. He's like, oh, I'll be having pizza and pasta on Friday.
Load it up. Can't load it up.
What word?
And yeah, the hospitality was phenomenal. So
Amazing. Can't wait to be there Friday.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening and watching, and we'll chat with you.
oh